Hi, my name's Phil. I'm a psychotherapeutic counsellor, a supervisor, and a trauma therapist. And I'd like to spend a little bit of time today talking about behavioral shame and how we maintain shame in our process via behaviors. It may seem illogical that we would be responsible for creating our own shame and that we would want to do that. But actually, if your process is based upon shame as being the most dominant feeling, that will be the feeling you want to have the most of. So, I mean, people who have fear based personalities will typically be finding things to be scared of. Angry people will find things to be angry of, so it tends to be that way. So, so what we're thinking about shame is, in a nutshell, if we're feeling bad about something or we're just getting a sense that we shouldn't do this, shame is there to tell us not to do it. So we can figure out and think, no, if I do that, I'm going to feel worse about myself later. I'm going to listen to that feeling. I'm not going to do it. So that helps us just to keep moral, to keep ethical, just to be a good person. It maintains that. So if it's working well. So, but if we're as a child, say we were shamed for having needs, so we were made to feel bad every time we got sad, made to feel bad when we got angry, bad when we needed to go to the toilet, bad when we needed washing, feeding, all of this sort of stuff. What it creates is it creates an innate belief that I haven't got this need of being sad or being angry. I'm actually bad for having that need. So the child becomes scared of those feelings. It becomes scared of its own anger. Could become scared of its own sadness because every time it has those emotions, there's a real negative, reaction from the environment that makes it feel bad about itself. So it begins to learn that those emotions are dangerous. So it suppresses those, and it does what we say in TA therapy. It rackets them. It converts into another emotion, which the brain believes is better off because it's safer to do the shame now. Because to do the sadness and the angry, that makes the environment dangerous. I'm better off just feeling bad about myself. It's a logical choice that the brain makes to stay alive, and it makes sense if you think of it in those terms. So, of course, because that shame is the most dominant emotion in our brain, we need to keep that maintained. So, because we can't allow the other emotions to come in, because if they do, that triggers a deep sense of fear within us, and so of course we have to convert that somehow back to shame. So, as later on in life, when we say, for example, if we find a relationship, we're happy, and we meet a nice partner, and we're really getting on well. That safe environment, that secure environment where you're getting your needs met, might actually trigger the need for more needs to be met, which of course triggers this feeling, gosh, what's going to happen if those needs get met? Because the brain, of course, from the child's perspective, is expecting something really bad to happen if it has needs. So because it's having needs in the relationship, it's triggering a lot of historical fear deep in the underground. But remember that feeling can't be felt, so shame must be created instead. So that person at that point might decide to do something shameful. It might pick a fight with their partner. It might accuse them of something. It might create some sort of drama, destabilize the situation, get it back into a sort of place of shame rather than the place of happiness and joy. But also, to take that step further, it also might think it will maybe go and have an affair. The shame person might go and have an affair. Now it won't just think I'm going to go and have an affair and create shame for myself. It's not how it works. What the brain will do, because it's desperate to get out of that nurturing environment, because its needs getting met is too frightening, it will maybe create an intense pleasure sort of drive towards the affair or some other immoral behavior. It will feel excited, like an adrenaline junkie response, like what they get when they jump out of a plane. So when the shame-based person is going to do something really shaming for themselves, they might not feel any fear relating to that. What they'll do is convert it into an excitement and an erotic sort of connection within themselves, and they'll follow that. They will follow that. But the thing is, once they've done that, once that act has been done, then of course the pleasure response starts to come in, and the shame from the most recent act fills their body, but actually it puts them into overload. So now they've given themselves a top up with shame, they've actually given themselves a load of new shame, which the body has now got to get used to dealing with a higher level of shame in the body, because it's already been dealing with a shed load of shame. Now it's got to deal with even more. So it might try to get rid of some of that shame by projecting it onto its partner, by accusing the partner of having, not liking them, having an affair themselves, or it might convert the shame into anger and try to shame somebody else just to try to get the shame out of the system. So the brain is going to do this for a period of time, but then, when it gets, either when it's got rid of a level of that shame by projecting it onto someone else, or it's equalized and got used to the heightened level of shame, of course we could be in a wash, rinse, repeat section again, because there's stillness there within the relationship, within the brain. There's no more further creation of shame. Needs might start wanting to get met again, and then of course the urge to do something else shameful might come in, and then wash, rinse, repeat, and the whole cycle begins again, which is a really sad process, because of course that person, just to avoid what they actually need and what would be really good for them to have, is willing to push away everything that they've got, lose maybe a happy family, a family home they've been invested in. But because they can't feel fear when they get that impulse to create new shame for themselves, that isn't a consequence that interests them at that point. It doesn't matter. That meeting the need of getting the shame fix is more important. But obviously, the brain isn't thinking that that's what's happening, but actually, that's what's happening when you think about it logically. So how to manage this would be, if you think about it logically, if you are someone, say, maybe who thinks like this, who creates shame for yourself, if you don't create further shame for yourself, all you've got to do then is forgive yourself for what you've done. But that further creation will keep on topping your levels, and up and up and up and up, and that will never end, because that might go on indefinitely, and you don't want to keep doing that to yourself. So if you can actually somehow resist the urge to go for that adrenaline like feeling that you're getting, which is in a way of trying to sabotage getting your needs met, because you're absolutely terrified of getting your needs met, because your process probably thinks, if I do that, it's going to kill me, because that's how the relationship during childhood used to make you feel so scared when you had a need. So when we think about that, so yes, so if you stop doing things in the present that create further shame, then you've got to find a way to forgive yourself for the shame of the past. You've got to just, and if you can talk to a therapist about it, that's great. I wouldn't recommend maybe going to partners or certain people to tell them all of this stuff, because you might then think that they're going to judge you because of what you've told them. You probably will with a therapist, but because they're a bit more detached, it might be easier for you to share your shame and be supported through that shame by the therapist. Sometimes our families and friends are too close to the project, if you know what I mean, and it can create more shame. But as you do start to wean yourself off the shame, which would be an absolutely amazing thing for you to do, what your brain is going to try to do is going to try to elevate your shame back up to what it's used to. So it will start to focus, as you're trying to forgive yourself, it will ruminate. It's going to try to project and focus on things from the past to give yourself that injection to get yourself back to that safe level, because your brain thinks, if I'm not in shame, there's a real risk to me. I need to stay in shame, when actually you don't. That was just the earlier environment made you feel that, made you believe that it was dangerous to do anything other than shame. So hopefully, that makes sense to you. It's a very brief description of a very complex, system. I will do another one or another couple of videos relate into the management of shame and how other people manage shame, not so much through behavioral means. And, hopefully that'll help a few people think a little bit about this. So if you like the video, please hit subscribe and the like button, and I'll pop another one up soon. Thank you. Goodbye.